Today I want to share a bit about my story, my journey. And it starts in Taiwan. It was my first time in Taiwan. And it was a very hot summer day. I was melting. And I was walking in the street. And then I see a shop and I see everyone is eating ice cream. So I thought, let's go get some ice cream. The thing is, at that time, I did not speak a word of Chinese. And there were no smartphone, no way to translate what I see or what I say. So I go in the shop and I just point at some random Chinese characters on the wall. And I will expect anyway I will get something sweet and cold. The waiter smiled and he came back to me with a fish head soup. First I was like, what kind of shop is that? They sell fish head soup and ice cream. And then I was thinking, maybe it's time for me to learn Chinese. And on that day, this is when I learned that sometimes in life, you want an ice cream and you get a fish head soup. And either you can be frustrated about it, or you can laugh, learn, and try again. And I believe leadership starts when we dare to step into the unfamiliar. Even if it surprises us, humbles us, or gives us something totally unexpected. And today, it is what I want to share with you. I want to share my personal view of leadership. Not as a title, not as a position, but as 3 simple steps that everyone can take. Steps you can remember with one word, which is act. With A standing for approaching the unfamiliar. This was me as a kid. I grew up in a tough working class suburbs of Paris, and I was nearly blind. I was having these glasses so thick that they felt like a shield. And I thought leadership was not for me. I thought it was for other people, for the cool kids, but not for me. But deep down, I wanted to escape. I wanted to see the world. So when I turned 19, one summer, I decided to go to Toronto in Canada because I did not speak a word of English, so I wanted to learn English. And because I needed money, and also I kind of wanted to try, I became a rickshaw driver. So imagine, I'm in Toronto, I don't speak a word of English. Again, no smartphone at the time, so no way to navigate in the city. And people will ask me to go from A to B. And on the top of that, behind my rickshaw, I had a big advertisement which said, special massage. So I had people who came and asked me if they want to go there, but I had no idea where it was. But I would just say, come in, I will bring you there. So they will sit in my back and I will pull them in the street of Toronto until I will see a massage salon. And I will say, here it is. And then they will go. Well, in the end, they always seem happy. The thing is, that's how I started to learn English. Years later, I went on a motorbike journey to cross Southeast Asia with the worst motorcycle you can imagine. It was to raise money for a school in Cambodia. And during that trip, all the time, I had strangers who were there to help me. And more than a decade later, I went with 2 friends to Sri Lanka to join a a charity rally, to drive a tuk-tuk across the country, to raise money for girls' education. And again, every time the tuk-tuk broke, we had people who were there to help us back on the road. So I learned that courage grows when we step into the unknown, but we rarely do this alone. Because all the time, I have strangers who are there to help me back on the road, friends to help me to carry the load, and whole communities I didn't even know were there to give me a hand. And that's where I think leadership begins, with care and curiosity, which I call curiosity. Because you need to be curious enough to step outside of your bubble, and you need to care enough to see the people that you meet on the way. And it is with that spirit that I went to Taiwan, a place with a very different culture, very different language. At first I didn't speak Mandarin. I learned it step by step, the hard way, with many fish head soup stories. But with time, I built friendship. I worked with local universities. I even started a company there. And I learned that you can be far away from where you are born and still build something meaningful. And sometimes the biggest risk is not to try. Sometimes the biggest risk is to not act. And all of this begins with stepping out of the bubble. But once you're out, what you do is even more important. Because curiosity brings you outside of the bubble, and care is what keeps you connected with others once you're outside. And that brings me to the second step, which is to connect and co-lead. Because leadership, it's not a solo act. Leadership is a circle. For many years, I hosted hundreds of people in my home. Refugees, travelers, people who had nowhere else to go. One of the refugees was sleeping in that pirate ship structure here in the municipal park of Luxembourg City. What was meant to be a place for kids to have fun, for him it was his only shelter at night. But today, he's attending a nursing school in Belgium. Another man I hosted went through unthinkable hardship just to have a roof on the top of his head. And today, he has a very good job here in Luxembourg. Another man was hitchhiking all his way from East Europe to Brazil. I met him on the way. And today, he works in a farm in the middle of the Amazonian jungle in Brazil, and he's very happy. At first, I thought I was helping them. But soon I understood they were helping me too. Because they taught me resilience, gratitude, and perspective. And they reminded me that leadership is not about being on the top. It's about pulling each other up. And that is true in my professional life too. As a CEO of TEDxLSB, some of my more powerful leadership moments came from my team. When they challenged me, when they took initiative, when they made the company better. And I believe leadership can start once we connect and once we trust each other enough to share responsibility. And we need to be willing to lead as much as to follow. Stepping out of the bubble and connecting are the first steps. But then the question is, what to do next? And that brings us to the third step, which is to take the good path. Because every day we face situations. Do we do what's easy or do we do what's right? And leadership, it's about taking the good path, even if it's more difficult, even scary, very slow. Sometimes small path can be small. It can be checking in on a colleague, helping a neighbor, standing up for someone who is being excluded. But sometimes the path can be bigger. Dedicating years to a cause, supporting future generations, or building something in the world that will make it better than the way we found it. And I had my personal journey with that, with these kids. So these are the kids from the Cambodian school, supported with my motorcycle journey. And every time I see them, they remind me that when you choose meaning over comfort, your actions can outlast you. Because it always begins with one choice: to do what is meaningful, not just what is comfortable. So here is my invitation to you. The next time in life you face an unfamiliar situation, you don't know what to do, just remember one word: act. Remember to approach the unfamiliar, to step out of your bubble. Remember to connect and co-lead. Trust the circle of leadership. Remember to take the good path. Choose meaning over comfort. Because leadership is for everyone. It's not for a chosen few. Wherever you are from, whatever your story is, you can lead. I was not born a leader. I was that kid with the big glasses in the suburbs of Paris who thought he could never lead. But if even that kid one day could build satellite and lead teams across the world, so can you. So don't wait. Act. Because leadership starts with you, and it starts now. Thank you.